Call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Richardson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Bryan.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence for everybody affected by all the tragedy in Southern California. All right, item D, personal appearances. 1, KEMA award presentation.
All right, we're just gonna move this. Are we on or do I have to? No, we are. All right, good evening. My name is Jillian Rodrigue, and I am the president of the Kansas Emergency Management Association. And I'm extremely honored to stand before you this evening for us to take a moment and to honor Claire. So just a little bit of background. The Kansas Emergency Management Association was formed in 1977, and it's a network of leaders dedicated to providing excellence in emergency management and homeland security across Kansas. Yes, I know we're in Missouri. Y'all have your own association, but of course, Claire was in Johnson County before she came over here, so hence why we are here as well. So our association, very similar to what your local association is, we're committed to promoting excellence through professionalism, fostering communication and cooperation through teamwork, soliciting input and active participation through responsiveness, and advocating for progressive growth through leadership. Now, as a part of our annual conference, KEMA hosts an awards ceremony. And I'm proud to stand here and recognize Claire as the 2024 Outstanding Service Award recipient. Now, nominations for this award are submitted by KEMA members for individuals or groups inside or outside of the organization who have put forth significant effort either during a specified period of time or for a specific action or accomplishment that furthers the aim of the association and is above and beyond their normal duties. Now, this is what Claire's colleagues had to say about her. Claire was instrumental in putting together the Emergency Management Institute course delivery for the Integrated Emergency Management course. Now, for anybody not familiar with what this course is, this is no small undertaking. This is a 4-day exercise-based training in which Claire put together and organized 74 individuals from Johnson County and its cities to go to Emmitsburg, Maryland to be a part of this training course. Now, they only offer a certain number every year, and it's a very high accolade for you to be accepted into this program. So Claire got everybody, 74 people, and that included government and non-governmental organizations, including all the flights and arrangements, making sure everybody had the necessary materials so they could be successful in the exercise, and then also assigning duties to her fellow counterparts at Johnson County Emergency Management. Through her efforts, Claire exemplifies KEMA's principles of teamwork, professionalism, responsiveness, and leadership. And I've had the distinct honor to work alongside Claire for several years now, and I know that she will continue to share this here in Belton, and I'm so excited to see what she does here for your community. So, council members, if you would join me in honoring Claire Keenan as the 2024 KEMA Outstanding Service Award recipient.
Speech. Thank you, and you can't have her back.
We'll see about that. No.
I'm curious, how many times has the Kansas Award gone to somebody in Missouri?
I started here the week of the conference, so room for a
All right, so not only do you say that, I also drove in from Lawrence. So presenting a Kansas Award in Missouri, I know I saw it when I walked in. It means a great deal to overcome crossing the border. But it's super important. Yes, Councilmember White. All right, I have one fan in the room. Thank you for that. I do notice they have you on opposite sides. I think that might have been on purpose. But it is an honor to be able to come out and present these awards. The folks that get these do a great ton of work that most people don't see and aren't aware of unless you ask and you're highly invested. So I'm very excited for Claire. She's fantastic, and you guys are very lucky to have her.
Thank you. All right, item E, unfinished business. Number 1, motion to approve the final reading of Bill 2024-64.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from R1 Single Family to A Agriculture for property located in the 15700 and 15800 blocks of Kentucky Road in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Bryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 2, motion to approve the final reading of Bill 2024-65.
An ordinance approving a cooperative agreement for water service with the city of Raymore, Missouri and Mason Banks to provide water service to property located in the 15700 and 15800 blocks of Kentucky Road in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Bryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Davidson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 3, motion to approve the final reading of Bill 2024-66.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Dock Holiday Gulch located in the 15700 and 15800 blocks of Kentucky Road in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing seen, do you have something?
No.
Oh. Hearing and seeing none, roll call?
Councilmember Bryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, motion to approve the final reading of Bill 2024-67.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to R3 PUD and a preliminary development plan for Creekstone at Autumn Ridge, a 144-unit multifamily development on the west side of South Mullen Road between the Smoky Hill Railroad right-of-way and more or less 400 feet south of Sycamore Drive.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question, and
Go ahead.
this may not be the place to ask it, but what's the time frame on this?
If approved this evening, the developer would have to go through final development plan and final plat process and then submit for building permits. I did talk with them earlier today, and if approved, they would be looking at a spring construction, a groundbreaking in the spring.
And this is years of work? I mean, 2 years, 3 years, 2 years? Okay.
Yeah, this conversation's been going on since 2020.
I haven't been involved that long, but I hope to see daylight. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Lawson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Bryan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion to approve the final reading of Bill 2024-68.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Crest Plaza, fourth plat, located east of North Cedar Street between East North Avenue and Given Avenue in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Bryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Davidson.
Yes.
Motion carries. F, new business, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-01.
An ordinance approving the jail services MOU between Cass County, Missouri and the city of Belton.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up, sir.
Chief Scott Lyons. We ended up having some repairs that we need to do to our municipal jail. And then this year's CIP, we have $80,000 to make some repairs. Some of these repairs are substantial, and I'll go through them in just a minute. But as we get ready for those, we noticed that we do not have a backup plan in regards to where we house prisoners. And so the Cass County Jail has a contract with several agencies where they will house municipal prisoners. They typically only jail for state offenses, and they also do for the feds as well. They are contracted. The contract that we have in front of you tonight that we're recommending, they have with several different agencies. It is for $75 per day per prisoner. Our contract that we have with other agencies is $63.93. So it's in the same ballpark. If we house prisoners for less than 4 hours, then it's reduced to $40 a day, and that the bill will be actually sent to us. This is a great cooperative agreement because we should have always had a backup plan for municipal court and for jail services. And with the repairs to our facility, we found that there is a plumbing belly problem that we have to deconstruct the inside of segregation 2 completely, going through the bench that is concrete and removing it, and the floor to get down into the plumbing system. There's many problems with the jail system, as you are probably aware, just from your knowledge of movies and such, that sometimes prisoners flush all kinds of things and stuff things down the plumbing, and we have years of use in the jail, and so we think that some of this damage has probably been with us for a long time. When we reconstruct this, we'll actually be pouring back concrete, bringing it back to original design, and then we have plans to epoxy the floor. And when we epoxy the floor, it'll be so toxic that we need to actually evacuate the personnel in that area, and have already rerouted our prisoners. We'll probably have our dispatch temporarily moved to another location, whether that's Raymore for a few days, and then, or maybe down to Cass County. And so we are probably a month or so away from these repairs. We're getting ahead of it, and that's why we're here tonight.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Brett. I just wanted to be sure that we've got money in the budget to accommodate when we have to use this MOU.
Yes, we do have money in the budget for this to compensate. And the other thing is we will be working forward with the municipal court, with the jail, and the court administrator, Laura Ellis. And there are plans that we would probably reduce bonds. We would have people bond out to reduce the number of people being shipped down to Cass County, because it is an interruption to their services as well. And anybody in custody, we would have to bring back up for court for their appearance. And so we're going to try to do this in such a way that we try to minimize the interruptions.
Thank you.
Do you have an estimate number of people, number of days you might be affected by this?
We think that we're going to be able to do this within a week and a half at the most.
Just, and how many people would we estimate that might
I believe
displace?
we probably, as far as jail inmates, we're probably talking somewhere around 25 or less. By the time we look at the seriousness of the crime and the people we're taking down there and the ones we're trying to bond and work through with court in a more orderly fashion. It might be similar to going back to COVID protocols, that if you remember that time, we've tried to not bring in prisoners for certain crimes, or transport them directly to facilities at other cities if they had their warrants. And some agencies do owe us some help in return, like Grandview.
That was going to be my next question, is didn't we just have
Yes.
have a local municipality that we were helping out?
Yes, we help out each other, and so this is nothing new, and I'm sure that we've already had discussions with some of our neighboring agencies.
So on that note, I know this is set up specifically to help with Cass County, but will the neighboring municipalities potentially be helping as well?
Yeah, they'll be helping us. They may ask to, for us to transport those directly to their facilities instead of going through ours or going down the cast only to be taken back to another agency. We'll transport them directly to that neighboring community.
Okay, thanks.
Make it more expeditious.
Go ahead.
You said the remodel was roughly a month?
No, we're probably a month away
Oh,
from doing this.
how long will the remodel take?
Going to be 10 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's going to be relatively short. We're coordinating everything to be done in a very short period of time.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do you need this? Chief, do you need this right away since you're a month away? I don't want to be behind.
Motion for a second.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion?
I guess I know a month is actually fairly close, especially when we only meet twice a month. Just want to confirm that it's because we need to get a contract in place or something like that before we meet again.
Yes,
Okay.
that would be preferable.
That's why I asked, because of the contract and not being behind on the last day. So, anybody else have any discussion on doing the second reading? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the second reading of Bill 2025-01.
An ordinance approving the jail services MOU between Cass County, Missouri and the city of Belton.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larky,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-02.
An ordinance amending section 111-106C of the Code of Ordinances and executing the rate change pursuant to the contract for waste collection services between the city of Belton, Missouri and GFL Environmental, Inc.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Second.
Oh,
Thank you.
I said that too fast, didn't I?
He's still up.
You're up.
Mr. Mayor and Council, good evening. This ordinance before you this evening is essentially a somewhat of a regular rate change, and I say regular, it turns, we did our contract back in 2023, a renewed contract or an amendment to the contract with GFL when we added curbside recycling, gave them the opportunity or the ability to raise rates along with CPI or the rate of CPI that's written into the contract, was written in back then. Generally, I believe the contract says they're supposed to tell us by March if they're going to do so for that year, for the next fiscal year. They came to us a little bit late in April and said, "Hey, can we raise the rate based on CPI?" And I pushed back and said, "Well, we just approved our budget. I didn't want to." I said, in the contract it says you have to do it by March." They said, "Okay, well, what's realistic or what's reasonable? Can we work on something here?" We could have held their feet to the fire and said, "You missed the contract deadline," and said, "No, we're going to wait until next March to do it." They came to us and said, "Well, how about if we revisit this the first of the year, see if we can't get a rate change at that point?" And I said, "Okay, well, let's discuss it." And then through negotiations, I said the only way we would even consider a potential rate change now, first of the year, is if we could keep that rate for the next fiscal year and then revisit it for, the fiscal year beginning April of 2026 before we would have any potential other rate changes. So this proposal before you is to go up by 0.41 or 4.1%, which matched the CPI for solid waste. There is a solid waste CPI measure, and that's what the contract accounts for. And it would lock it in from now until essentially March of 2026. And we would revisit what potential rate change they would want, or any increases they might want for April of '26. We would start revisiting that in the fall of this year. So, and having those discussions. So we're just asking for that rate change. If you'll recall, also when we added curbside recycling, the cost was higher than what we passed along to the customers. We tried to eat that for a little while, and we're going to stair step it up a little bit. And so essentially that cost was only $2 to the customers, even though it cost us, almost $4, I believe, for the increase to add curbside recycling. I'm not talking about per resident, per user. And so we're gonna do both at the same time, the 4.1%, and then finishing out. So essentially, what I'm saying is, we will be passing along the bill to the customers, to the residents, that we're essentially being charged by GFL per household. So it would essentially amount to a $2.48 per month per resident increase if you approve this ordinance. And on the good side, we have some good news as we're going through the budgeting process. Everybody's aware, the trash bill is part of the water bill, and so it's all put together in one bill that's sent out by the city. We are anticipating that we'll be able to have a decrease in the water bill beginning in April when we get the new fiscal year started with the budget. And we'll have those discussions as we get the budget discussions next meeting during our budget workshop. But we anticipate having a decrease in our water bills to more than make up for this increase moving forward. So it actually would be still a net benefit for the residents. But yeah, I'd stand for any questions.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear you. How much did you say? $2 and what?
48 cents a month per resident.
And that's, to be clear, total with the CPI increase as well as the step up from
Correct.
the deficit.
Our current rate that we are being charged is $20.41 by GFL. The current rate that we're charging households right now is $18.79. So you'll see the disparity there. So the reason we were able to do that is because of, in the past, we had built up a fund balance in solid waste, and so we said we would even this out for the customers and stair step this up. And because of things like the cart fees and stuff like that existed. Now we no longer have the cart fees on there, and so essentially this would just be passing along the bill. But yeah, it's $2.48 total. But yep.
Go ahead.
Locking in this rate until April of 2026, they won't be able to double dip on CPI, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if by next March we get notice that they would like to increase by the CPI, whatever growth or decrease that sees this year won't translate to their request.
This year's CPI essentially is what we would be rating this, adjusting for. And so essentially the deal we're getting is there's been 2 years of CPI and we're only accounting for one in this increase. And so they would only get one moving forward every year if they choose to do so per the contract.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
And you said next meeting, the budget, we're going to be discussing ways to reduce, so that way.
Yes, we are far along enough in the budget process now that we see a high likelihood, assuming the council agrees, of decreasing water bills for FY26, which begins in April of this year. And so we will definitely have more details on that for you guys at their budget workshop.
Go ahead.
In regards to what our solid waste cost looks like compared to municipalities, have we looked at that? Just across the region, how we are faring in that regard?
Yeah, I don't have a comparison all the way across the board, and we could put one together for you pretty quickly. I know we're competitive. I do know that for a fact. Depends on where you're at. I mean.
Yeah, and I'm not. I guess where I'm going with that is I want to make sure that we're not going to suddenly start to hear, I live in Raymore and I don't have to, my bill's only $10, or I live in Grandview and my bill's only $5, whatever, right? So,
right.
Just wanting to always make sure we're competitive.
Well, and we can address that as soon as this contract's up. If the council so chooses to go back out for bid, we can see what the market bears.
Yeah, I'm gonna knock on wood. They've been overall, I think, pretty good services, especially when you look at our last situation that we were in with trash. So I think this has been a pretty good, setup. I just, again, make sure we're always competitive.
They're not perfect, and no company is, but yeah, I think that overall we're pretty pleased with the service that we're getting, and generally they're responsive. I mean, it's not perfect again, but most of the time they're responsive when there's an issue or there's something that's been missed. They're pretty communicative when there's things like the snow, blizzard issue where they couldn't have service. They're communicative about saying, hey, here's what's going on, so we can get that on our social media and share that with the public. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we're getting a professional service here, and I don't know that we had that with the previous.
I checked, according to the Raymore website, trash and recycling is $21.35 a month, so definitely competitive.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
our rate would be $21.27 a month at that point, at this point, even with this increase, so there you go.
Question,
Go
are
ahead.
we gonna still help, subsidize part of the trash bill like we've been doing?
If you approve this increase with this ordinance, we would not be subsidizing the trash bill at any point, anymore, any further. We would be charging exactly what we're being charged.
Yeah, we've ate up all that excess funds. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Would you, I realize this is a rate increase and that there may not be an appetite for a double read. Would you consider that?
I'm not.
Totally your call.
I guess my question on that is there a pressing issue that we should be double reading this
Just
for?
they've asked us for it, but that's, again, it's 2 weeks. It's not gonna be the end of the world.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but I would prefer not to.
Prefer not to.
That's fair. Understood. Okay.
All right. Item 3, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-03.
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2025 adopted city budget for the purpose of purchasing 2 council-approved dump trucks and purchasing 80 golf carts with GPS.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
You don't look like Casey.
I don't look like Casey. I'm standing in for Casey. She had something come up and she was an emergency. She was not able to be here. Yeah, so there's 2 parts to this budget amendment that we're asking for, and that, I'll attack these separately. The first one is the dump trucks. The dump trucks were originally, they were in the 2020 FY24 budget. The expectation when we were in the budgeting process for FY25 was that we were being told by the company we would have delivery of those and we would have the billing of those completed by the end of March of last year, so that way we could get them into that fiscal year. We did not get delivery at that point. In fact, we didn't get the trucks for another 6-7 months after that. We just got them a couple months ago. And so because of that, they were not budgeted for, but the money was there because the money that was originally allocated for them in the FY24 budget just carried over as a fund balance in FY25. So there's no negative impact to the budget. It just didn't get pushed into the 25 FY budget because we expected to have it already completed before the end of FY24. Through no control of our own, we were unable to get that done, and so this is what we're asking for that portion of it is for the dump trucks. The other portion, we did have a budget workshop, or we did have a workshop, not a budget workshop, a workshop previously discussing the golf carts and how, just by moving the golf cart purchase up a few months, we can get the golf carts changed out before the busy season for the golf course, because it wouldn't obviously be ideal to be changing out golf carts in May or June whenever they're in the middle of their busy season. And in fact, right now it'd be perfect because they can't play any golf right now. But not that this would take place currently, but we're asking you for the amendment for those 2 things essentially. I'll be glad to stand for any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
So I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask this question for this one or the next one, but I guess I'll throw it out here, which is specific to the golf carts. And this might be a more golf-specific question. I saw we're going from 74 to 80. Can you just explain? I don't think we talked. You did a great job explaining everything last time when we had the work session. Just I don't know if we talked about that specifically. If you could get into
Let's
that.
do that on item 4.
Okay,
This is just making the budget square.
got it.
Anybody else on the budget revision? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 4, motion approving the resolution 2025-01.
A resolution approving trade-in of existing golf cart fleet, 2021 Club Car Tempo gasoline golf carts, and purchase of 80 2025 Club Car Tempo gasoline golf carts with accessories from M&M Golf Carts LLC in the amount of $254,000.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
So in answer to your question, excuse me, typically for operations, we're much busier than we were back years ago. So our rounds of golf have increased by 40+% over the last number of years since we bought the previous fleet. Typically for large tournaments, when you have a full field event, you need 72 golf carts to handle that event. We have 74, so we always have a couple extra carts should a cart need service, things along those lines. Obviously, we have more events, we have more need, so we have a lot more cart usage than we've had in the past. So the idea was to go to 80 golf carts instead of 74, allows us to be able to not rent golf carts for even our bigger tournaments that require more than 72 golf carts. There's still going to be obviously wear and tear on our fleet. There's still going to be golf carts that are going to need to be serviced at times and not available to be rented. So this just gives us a little bit more flexibility. We rent currently the last number of years, we've had to rent carts on several different occasions. You have to rent 10 golf carts from the rental company at a time because they're not going to do it for 1 or 2 golf carts. So that is about $50 a golf cart per rental. So it's $500 every time we call them up to rent 7 times a year. We're spending about, $2,500 to $3,500 a year, just depending on what we're doing for golf cart rentals. So this would eliminate that need in the future. Of course, we could still have a large tournament that we need to rent something for, but overall, this would take care of our needs.
Okay, I was unaware of the renting, so thanks for explaining that.
Anybody else? Or you got anything else?
No, and again, thank you very much for considering this change to the budget and allowing us to do that. I did get some information over the past couple weeks that or the past week I should say that so the way that the golf cart industry works is you're basically the entire country is ordering golf carts. So this is going to allow us to get into the queue and hope to get our golf cart fleet at a decent time, but there's not a guarantee until we place our order of how that's going to fall. So, worst case scenario, it could still be late April, early May, but this at least gives us the opportunity to get our order in and get us into that mix. So, I'm hopeful for the earlier rather than the later.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry if you said this already. When were the current golf carts purchased?
We purchased them in 2021. So the current fleet, typically we run our fleets anywhere from 5 to 7 years, depending on the wear and tear on the fleet itself. We have put over 125,000 rounds of golf on this particular fleet, where in years past, it would have taken us 7 years to reach that round number. We did that in 4 years. So we're upping that amount just a little bit early to get us in, but we're also moving to the GPS to give ourselves that customer experience and just give us a little bit more wow and bang for our buck to the consumer.
Okay, one other question. Do we have any sort of VERP in place for golf carts? No. Joe's saying no.
We don't, but to be quite honest with you, that is something that's pretty easy that we could do. I mean, it's going to be an every 4 to 5 year type of purchase. Part of the advantage of going with gasoline golf carts like we do versus electric golf carts, the value of the golf carts is much higher. So for example, when we purchased these golf carts back in '21, we paid just under $5,000 per golf cart. In today's dollars, that same cart's now $1,000 more expensive. But our trade value on the current fleet is $3,000 per cart. So we're gonna run a golf cart for, $2,500, $2,800 roughly, for the next 4 to 5 years. And so when you break that down by the fact that so far this year and in this fiscal year, for example, golf cart rentals are about $375,000 is what we brought in so far in our cart rental fees.
Okay.
So,
Thank
give you
you.
an example.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, motion approving resolution 2025-02.
A resolution approving a rental and service agreement with Club Car LLC to provide Visage GPS hardware and software to 80 2025 Club Car Tempo gasoline golf carts with accessories for a term of 4 years at an annual cost of $31,987.20.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're still up.
Yes, so the second half of that equation was obviously going with the GPS option to these golf carts. There are many positives to it, also, many to the consumer. Once again, for those of you that play golf, this would be like a iPad screen that is mounted to the golf cart, shows yardage, distance, hazards like bunkers, water, things on those lines. And so it allows the customer to see how far away they are from the green, which is really important for the golfers. They want to know those things. But it's got a lot of secondary benefits to it. There's some back-end things for us, like fleet management, so we can see how many times a golf cart has actually been rented in a month. So if we need to do service, oil changes, things along those lines, it tracks all of that information. It also lets us know where every golf cart is at on the golf course at any time. It also times. So we have a parameter, we call it pace of play, but you're expected to play a round of golf in a certain amount of time. And if you fall behind, it sends out an automatic alert to that golf cart to tell you, hey, please pick up your pace, things along those lines. So it's just going to create a lot more advantages for us to be able to try to improve the golfing experience to those that come out and play Eagles Landing.
When someone wants them more than us, will it tell us where they're at?
As long as the GPS part is working, which if you turn the cart on and you try to run it, it's obviously going to turn that signal on. So we have the geofencing. Geofencing would be part of the GPS. So, for example, we could set a boundary completely around the golf course property, so the minute that cart entered that no-go zone, it would shut the golf cart off. So it would at least allow us some time to know, hey, there's something that needs our attention. I would also send an alert to there's basically going to be a large TV monitor that would be located in the pro shop, to where you would be able to see a 2D version of the golf course, and you would see where all the golf carts are at any given time. So you can also send messages. They can send messages to us. So, for example, if they had a malfunction to their golf cart, they could send us a message through the Vision, the GPS system.
Go ahead.
What you got?
I heard they'll shut down before you enter sand traps and things like that. Is that true?
Well, yeah, you have to geofence that bunker, but
Okay.
in somebody's defense, that just sprung up on him. It
was dark.
Came out of nowhere.
Dark. The glow-in-the-dark golf tournament.
Yeah, that's the best time of the year.
It was dark, and I didn't see it, even though I've been playing out there for 40 years. Go ahead.
Why 4 years?
That's just the length of their standard contract. We'll look at coming back at a later time. Mainly the 4 years is because technology changes so much and so quickly. We want to make sure that as we move forward, again, we're just renting this stuff from them. So if a newer, better, badder version comes up as we get closer to, maybe we buy another set of golf carts in 4 years, we wouldn't be tied into a $31,000 contract that we're going to move forward with something different.
He's telling you he was going to buy new golf carts in 4 years is what he's telling you.
If rounds of golf keep going the way they're going, we'll all be happy to buy golf
So
carts in 4 more years.
you've abandoned the 5 to 7, now you're at the 4.
Not abandoning, no, sir. It's just a matter of, we just look at the landscape as we can, and as we have opportunities to do things, we'll look at taking those opportunities.
And so, if there's updates, are they free?
Yes, everything software-wise is covered under the agreement that we have with them. So as software updates come, so they'll be coming out, once the new fleet is on site, they'll come out to install the GPS portion of it. They'll also be putting in some Wi-Fi extenders, things on those lines to between the clubhouse and the cart storage building. Because once again, the minute you turn the golf cart on, that's when it's powering the GPS portion of it. So it's looking for that information.
Thinking the opposite way, when our 4 years is up, is there a I cannot think of the right term. But if we want to extend it in just 1 year, because we're looking at our rates on the golf carts, we say we can get another year of these golf carts. Is that a I cannot think of the right term, but just a 1-year extension possible kind of thing?
100%, yes. Yeah, if we decide to go 4, 5, or even 6 years, I mean, let's just say that the golf cart fleet is in great mechanical shape and we're very happy with the fleet, and we're not looking to take on, the expense of buying another fleet, we can extend it 1 year, 2 years. I mean, this is a standard contract with them. We can certainly work with them to amend the term.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Item 6, motion approving resolution 2025-03.
A resolution authorizing and approving task agreement number 2025-1 and the contract for services with TC Fuller Construction LLC for the wastewater treatment plant precast cluster vault installation project in the amount of $338,239.34.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
So if you remember our tour of the wastewater treatment plant, and I know you guys all remember, it's probably fresh in your mind. As we walked to the aerator, that's the point where it started to rain on us. Yes, if you remember that. So we walked up on top and we looked at the aerator, and then we walked down below and I showed you where these 3 valves were. These 3 valves actually go from the ground all the way down 17 feet where the actual valve is at. So we have a long key, long piece of metal that goes down there and you have to try to turn it. There's no way to service those, and when they built the plant in 1965 or in the 60s, they didn't account for how we were supposed to ever get down there and do that work. One of them's broken now, and we actually need to get down there, and the only other way is just to dig it up, dig a large hole to get to it. We figured while we dig the hole, we might as well build a vault around it to allow us to have access to it anytime that we need to. So this would be a 3-sided access, 3-sided vault that would allow us to have access 18 feet deep down to these keys, and so that through the valves, so we can go down there, change the valves, do any work we need to, and have it safe for our workers who they work there. Also, when we looked at it, they're on the other side of the sidewalk. We have clarifiers. One of the valves that goes in the clarifier is also in the same condition, where it's just an 8-inch hole that goes all the way down. There's no way to work on it. This would enlarge it to 4 feet diameter and allow us to put a pipe basically straight down over it, so we could get a ladder down to it, so we could do maintenance to that valve. So this contract would actually allow us to build the 2 openings, 2 vaults, so we can actually work on the valves that are at the plant. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Go ahead.
How much is it going to cost us just to dig it up and do that work, that maintenance, if we weren't to put a vault in?
I got one bid for the one, it was like $60,000 just to dig a hole down to it, and then you have to do the work to do the maintenance to it.
Okay. Is this vault including the work? Like this price that we're looking at here, is this
Yeah, so
including that work?
this is the full deal. So they'll dig it out, have to restrain all the dirt as they dig it, and then they have to pump the water out because there's going to be water in the bottom of that 17, 18 feet deep. You'll hit water table. And so we'll have water that'll come out, and then we'll build the vault around it so we'll have permanent access to it.
Go ahead.
So it'll be repaired and ready to go when it's done.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, motion approving resolution 2025-04.
A resolution authorizing and approving a contract for services with KC Custom Signs for the fabrication and install of directional signs in the amount of $13,800.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the item before you is just an approval of the contract. For the past year and a half, maybe a little more, the Tourism Council, Community Development, as well as Economic Development has been working on a wayfinding program to kind of better identify some of our key points of interest, our downtown, our parks and recs amenities, and so on. And what you're looking at and considering tonight is a contract for the first phase of that plan. This would actually be a replacement of signs that are currently located two along 58 Highway, and there's one at 163rd and Given. And there's a current Parks and Recreation sign there at Cedar and Commercial. These signs would replace those. You kind of see kind of an initial mock-up and design of what those signs would look like based on our current branding and some of our current styles. KC Customs, we did hold an open bid for this. 3 qualified bidders presented their pricing. KC Custom Signs, who has done work with the city before, was the lowest and best bidder, and that is who staff is recommending for approval on these 4 signs. We do anticipate, and council has seen through the CIP presentation at the last budget, or at the kind of the CIP work session, we do intend to continue this project in future budget years, adding more signs as we do throughout the city, but then also looking at other monument signs and wayfinding kind of directional signage throughout the community. So look forward to any questions you might have.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I have a couple questions for you. In the example in the packet, is that accurate to what will be on the signs, like broken hatchet? No, okay.
No, yeah, those were just samples that we had used as kind of part of the, we wanted to give the bidders an opportunity to actually see what we had designed and what we had envisioned. We didn't have locations identified just yet, and so we weren't sure who to put on there, but we wanted to kind of show it as complete a sign as possible.
Gotcha. I noticed the timing. The Tourism Council, I think their last meeting was in October. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then their next meeting is this Thursday.
Correct.
Okay. I just don't know if, like, the example we're seeing incorporates whatever feedback they would have given in October or anything that would have changed since then. And if this ties to a broader branding or marketing campaign for the city, it aligns well with the city website, the city brand colors, but I'm just wondering if there's kind of a through line, or how can we build on these signs and not make them kind of a standalone thing, but a more cohesive project that helps brand Belton?
Sure, and that was part of what we've been working on in the Tourism Council, and Community Development had done a really good job of putting together. Really, the directional signs are just one piece of the larger, also have samples of some of the monument signs. And I think even we had talked about like an archway sign at the front of Main Street here. There's kind of a broader project that we've looked at that we can incorporate throughout the community, different size of signs, kind of the large monument signs I think that you've seen in other communities, that really these aren't just going to be one-off signs. I think what we're looking at right now is we had originally in the economic development budget, we had budgeted just for a small handful of signs, not knowing what the cost was going to be. And so now that we've kind of got a clearer idea of what that cost is going to be, we've been able to incorporate that as part of the CIP going forward out of the economic development budget, and we can kind of, over the next couple of years, really build out both the wayfinding, the monument signage, as well as kind of some more of that directional signage to tie together everything.
You made me think of a couple other things.
Go for it.
I recall the talk of like a archway over the entry to Main Street. This is pretty different than what those very early conversations would be like. I also think about the new signage outside of High Blue, the clock as a gift for the 150th. Like, all these pieces ideally kind of interplay, right? And I know that's maybe too late to be pointing these things out, but ideally it would all work to serve the same brand. And one other question,
we have a sign shop in Public Works. Is this outside of their capacity or scope?
These are not signs that we normally make. I mean, they're pretty specialized signs.
They look great, and what we have now is so bad and looks haunted and faded and awful, so anything would have been an improvement. I'm glad this is happening. I just hope that collectively this can be a big change maker.
Yes, and to kind of answer your question about like the clock, for example, we had, that was a donation. That was not something that we had design control over to kind of match and mirror what we have in terms of the branding of the city. What I envision is these signs really matching and mirroring a lot of those brand standards that we have developed over the last couple of years, as well as the monument signs and other things. And while we had very, very early concepts for an archway sign, I think we could see some of that because KC Custom Signs had initially looked at and we had discussed what we could do to, one, bring the cost down on that archway sign, but then also incorporate a little bit of our branding standards in what that sign would look like. Plus, we don't want a totally modern sign right there at the front of Main Street when we've got a historic downtown. How do we blend the two? And KC Custom has been really good to work with on some of our, so like the metal artwork that we have here at the front in the lobbyway, the annex. That was one of the pieces that they worked on with us very early on.
Okay, can't wait to see how this progresses. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
If there were going to be other signs for different organizations that could be possibly placed in the downtown area, could those organizations work with this group of people to make them all kind of cohesive?
I think that would be, the ideal situation. I know that's been, initially we've been kind of looking inward to where what city, amenities and things. So like, we're going to have the golf course in one of the in the next phase. But in this phase, for example, a good example, we're going to have the signage that is park signage is going to be, replaced with some of this new items so it can be a little more tied together and cohesive. But I would envision looking forward and planning forward to other organizations that would want to participate.
Well, in descriptions of equipment or anything, we could make it appear like it's from the same thought plan. Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
oh,
Either
sorry.
one of you. Here. Go ahead.
Looking at the example, are we gonna actually list the different business names?
No, that kind of goes back to Councilmember Lawson's question, yeah. That was just an example that we put together that we could show bidders kind of what the lettering would look like on those signage, yeah.
Didn't KC Customs get this bid previously? Are they the ones that we were waiting on and never got back to us?
I wanted to know the same thing. If there was a delay on this, who was that delay from?
So we had, not being a metal expert, a sign fabrication expert or anything, we had kind of leaned on a couple different vendors to ask what are the specifications we should be putting into signs that, one, are going to stand up to Midwest weather, but two, aren't going to create what I feel like are our current signs. And also, how do we ensure, because I've been talking with our Public Works Director, how do we ensure that if, God forbid, someone were to hit the sign, what specifications do we need on those shear bolts in the foundation so that we can easily replace one? There were a lot of specifics that I was kind of waiting on because I wanted to make sure we had, one, a correct specification sheet in the bid, but then also we were putting signs up that were going to be cost efficient, but also going to stand a little bit of time based on just some of the weather we've had here recently.
Okay.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure. So if I'm understanding your answer, maybe I just didn't catch it. It was partly us not being sure of design. I thought the delay was not on us. That's why I'm asking.
We have not put this project out to bid yet. We had received a quote from a couple different vendors, just as I was out trying to research and figure out what type of sign should we actually be installing, because between box signs, monument signs, or pole signs, do we want to be installing the poles? What kind of fabrication materials do we want to use? I mean, there were a lot of questions we were asking, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't get someone to come in here and just say, I'm going to put a pole sign made out of metal and throw it up and call it a day. I wanted to make sure I could speak with some knowledge to the council about these signs they're going to be quality material.
Yeah, and take in a lot of safety things and all the other things you said, which is great. It's perfect. I mean, we need to do that. I want to echo what Councilmember Lawson said about cohesiveness, because I am certain that our current downtown Main Street sign probably looked fantastic on its first day. And so I'm sure these will look fantastic too on their first day, but it's making sure that they're not a one-off and making sure that they are part of the bigger, Belton community, like you mentioned parks and those other things. So just would ask that we make sure that we're trying to have some of that foresight. It sounds like we do. I'm not saying we don't, but just keep that in mind, please. And then, I lost my train of thought. Give me 1 second here, and I'll go back to it. So has the Tourism Council approved this? Or I guess I wasn't clear on that. Was that something that they had
This was
agreed?
a project that we had worked on, I want to say this past summer, spring. I mean, it's been a while that they have been working on it, and that we've kind of been putting together both the points of interest, the kind of the design and look of the signs, as well as then the map and the phasing of where we want the kind of the first phase of this to go.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to make sure that they're, like any of our boards, I want to make sure that we're taking their advice, so.
I'll just quickly correct myself because I double checked on the city's website. It looks like the last tourism council meeting was in August with September, October, November, December canceled. So I really want to, Councilmember Richardson, you're on the board, and Mayor, I believe you're the liaison, lean on the folks on that board to kind of help guide us.
Agreed. Go ahead.
And I think there's that sentiment to do exactly what you're talking about, so.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this project's been a couple of years in the making. We did present to the Tourism Council when it first started, I believe, one of the first 2 or 3 meetings of the Tourism Council. We had some of the signage and some potential archway designs and things like that. We never even narrowed down an archway design because we never figured we weren't quite ready to afford it yet. But yeah, so this has kind of been a project just for everybody, for the public. I know there's a lot of council members that have been here less than a year. And so, yeah, this started with the Tourism Council, maybe a year and a half ago when the council first started. And then it just kind of has been taking us to this point to actually get it into practice.
If I can just quickly add, it does seem like low-hanging fruit to swap out signs, but it's not, and allowing time to make cohesive choices, I'm all for that. So, thank you.
Can we rent space? I mean, are we going to have enough poles tall enough that, Round Barn Food could rent a space and put, an arrow that way? I mean, that's just something that I just thought of.
It's something we could,
I mean, because there may be people that specifically want their sign there.
I would, from a staff perspective, my recommendation would be that for cohesiveness and control of the signs, we not rent space on
Well,
our signs.
but if we rented space under the guidelines of the Tourism Council and, I just something just to throw out.
I think
so.
generally, if I can interject real quickly, the purpose of wayfinding signage is to allow folks to find our major assets pretty quickly. And we're not the first community to tackle a project like this. You go to some other cities, you'll see Harrisonville's got some pretty good wayfinding signage that they've put up. And so generally it's not the type of signage that you put up that's kind of like a, hey, come to our store, come to this place, and we're going to rent it out. It's more of a, these are our major assets, and those don't change very often. And so it's, these are our parks, these are, golf course, things like that. And so the purpose of them is not necessarily for specific individual advertising or it's just to try and direct it to our downtown business district, right, or things like that. And so that's generally, I'm not saying we couldn't do that. That's not usually the purpose for these types of signage.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because, as a matter of fact, in Harrisonville, Red Barn Farm has one.
Sure.
And I just wondered if that was something, and I'm assuming that they're a major player in Harrisonville.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, if we have a major asset and they want to, they want to pay for their own sign and it matches our standards, and I mean, I'm sure that something like that would be.
they look exactly like what they have
Right.
downtown.
Right.
To go on the back road to find it, and that's why I was curious
Understood.
if that was something that we could accommodate.
Go ahead.
I know originally in the beginning when we started talking about the signs, there were multiple different options and this was one of the designs that we had picked, color coding it for each group. And downtown Belton Main Street with their sign, we've been looking to replace that sign for quite a while, but we kind of put that on hold so that when this did all take place, it would match with the rest of the city. So that's the explanation on downtown Belton Main Street sign up here, because it does need to be replaced, and there's one down on Y Highway down here, so, yeah.
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
Would it, kind of piggybacking on what Councilmember Thompson was saying, could we adapt it to like when we have specific festivals that we want to draw attention to? I mean, those would be not something we necessarily would want up all year long, but
Sure.
something that could be added.
Right, and I think to Joe's point about the purpose of wayfinding being really more directional signage to our major assets for things like festivals and other events, I think we have a host of other marketing and advertising venues that we could use that wouldn't necessarily have to be a specific wayfinding sign.
Anybody?
I like the idea of getting fresh stuff up.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G, consent agenda. One motion non-available to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I'd like number 3.
Number 3 removed. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor for 1 and 2?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving resolution 2025-05.
A resolution appointing Benjamin Newell to serve on the Public Safety Sales Tax Oversight Committee.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Just for the public, can we kind of explain why Brian's term would only be for a couple of months, ending in June?
He was taking the place of somebody, he's finishing out a term.
Okay.
So
it's
the other
just
person resigned and he's finishing out and that person's term is up.
so it's just a matter of finishing out a term, and then we'll look to potentially replace him or keep him in there or whatever come June. Okay. It was just an unusual situation where it was just a couple months here, so.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item H, communication from City Council. Councilmember Johnson.
Just want to thank Public Works for the job they did on getting the streets clear. I know that was a huge undertaking, and I know not everybody was happy, but I think it was good work, well done.
Okay, I'm going to go backwards into 2024 to start this off, because I did a ride-along with the police right before Christmas, and boy, was that a busy day. Very different from the last time I got to go do that. I was very quiet the last time, and this time it was very busy. So I just want to say, and if you saw the news, we had a few things going on. So they did some great police work. And I just wanted to say thanks to everyone that took time to show me around. I did go check out the jail again, so I'll be interested to see those updates coming. And I specifically want to thank Officer Raven, who I spent the most time with. And then I'll fast forward into 2025. I also would like to thank Public Works. I think they've done a pretty stellar job given a storm that I believe hasn't happened in like a decade. I know we had a pretty big one last year, but technically this was bigger. And I know that they've probably spent a lot of time on the small problems that I'm sure that they've heard a lot of. But overall, I think it was just a very job well done, and I want to call that out. I have a long parks update, so bear with me here. I want to remind everybody that the January and February park board meetings fall into holidays. They're being moved to the next day. Those next days will be January 21st as well as February 18th. And those meetings will likely not be recorded because they will be at the same time as our planning commission. The Parks annual budget, they're going through their review process. It has gone through their subcommittee, so they are continuing to make progress on that front. The spring sports signups are currently open. And then despite this cold weather, Parks has a lot of upcoming events going on. We have the Brick Mania taking place on January 25th. We have Murder at the Station Dinner Theater taking place on March 8th. We have Art After Dark, glass painting, that'll be on February 11th. And we have the Family Dance coming up on February 22nd. And if you have any questions about any of that stuff, whether it's the sports signups or the events, you can find it on their website, or of course you can always call the front desk at High Blue. Okay, that's everything I got.
I was just going to say, I appreciate Public Works. They worked a lot of long hours. They also did pre-treat the streets. I know a lot of people said they didn't, but I saw them out there and they definitely pre-treated. But that was a lot of ice we got. I was out driving in it Saturday night, so I appreciate the work that they did and all the employees.
I'll echo that. I heard actual humans tell me you all did a great job, and they went out of their way to tell me that, so I appreciated that and wanted to relay it. Also, shout out to our marketing and comms team for our budget book, getting some national recognition. Very cool. Thank you.
I have nothing.
I spent two nights last week at the warming shelter at Heart and Hand, and it was very rewarding. It went smooth. I would say we averaged about 11 people each night, but it was well worth it. If you get a chance to donate your time, I mean, they'd appreciate it.
I too would like to thank the Streets Department and all the hard work you guys have done. I want to really send out a thank you to High Blue for having the pool open, because I had my grandkids a lot during the break and I swam them until they were ready to drop. So that was an awesome thing. I'd like to talk about the homeless. We have it's a count that is held every January, and this year the count is on January 22nd, and they are looking for volunteers that are willing to go out in the night, all through the night, and actually count campsites. And we have paperwork that we ask them to fill out so that we can get federal money for the number of people that we service. And there's training, and you can talk to Sandy at Compass if you're interested in that. But it's a worthwhile event. It's a terrible, terrible cold night, and it's a long night typically. But they are looking for volunteers, and it's January 22nd. So if anybody's interested in doing that.
Got a couple things. I want to thank Heart and Hands for stepping up and opening up a warming center. It's been quite successful, I hear. Then I have had some issues that I'd like to, I mentioned to Greg that I was going to raise. I am very thankful for the way they handled this snow event that we don't normally have. But I've heard a couple of things, and one is, could you, for the public, tell us what the sidewalk snow removal policy is?
I sure can. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all our guys who are out there plowing. It's an endless, tough job, and it's very hard to do. It looks simple, but street after street, day after day, night after night, it gets to wear on you very quickly. And so they did an outstanding job, and I'm very proud of them. As far as shoveling sidewalks, the sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner. So the property owner is supposed to shovel the sidewalks that are in front of their houses. If it's a business, usually the business owner has an agreement in their lease that tells you have to clean the sidewalks and maintain the property. And so they're the ones who are supposed to maintain the sidewalks in front of their house.
Thank you for that. Because as I'm out and about, I see a lot of individuals trying to walk because they don't have transportation. And I've seen several handicapped individuals trying to use the sidewalks, and they're not clear. And it's very dangerous for individuals trying to use the sidewalks when people aren't trying to clear them. That brings me up to a second thing, And that is, when they clear the streets, a lot of times they're pushing the snow right in front of the handicap sidewalk entrance. And so they are buried, and so the handicapped individuals cannot get into the sidewalks because the snow's covering it. And so I'm hoping that over the course of some time, when we have a chance to kind of analyze that we figure out a different way to put it, so that way, because they're piled up high when you get this kind of snow, and people are not able to, when especially ice there, they're not able to clearly get those cleaned off to where the sidewalks can be open for people to use them, especially those handicap aspects. So, but you guys did a great job. But those are the two things that I've heard. The sidewalks was a major issue.
All right, again, I'll give my thanks to your whole crew, you and your whole crew. Job well done. So I had several complaints, but believe it or not, I had more praises than complaints this year. So, and I had one from a long-time Belton resident, and I about dropped to the floor when I got it from him. So that's all I have, City Manager.
Don't have anything.
Items for review and discussion. Item 1, Unified Development Code amendments.
Staff is currently working on several UDC text amendments that we'll be bringing forward for review and consideration over the next few meetings. The first amendment will be to repeal and replace Section 42-110, which is related to lead-free plumbing materials, which would meet federal regulations that were adopted in 2020. These amendments will lower the percentage of lead that may be in a material for it to be considered lead-free. A public hearing for that item will be held on January 21st at Planning Commission, and we will bring that forward to City Council on January 28th. The second set of amendments is a little bit more detailed, and it impacts several chapters in the UDC to allow additional flexibilities and options for accessory structures, accessory uses, and building site projections and setbacks. Some of the more significant changes include reducing the building separation from 10 feet to 5 feet between accessory structures and the principal building, which is more in line with what most other cities in our area require. Also increasing the maximum shed size from 200 square feet to 400 square feet, or up to 5% of the lot area, whichever is greater, which does match the detached garage allowances. Again, is more in keeping with other communities in the area. And then allowing exceptions for accessory structures in the front yard of agricultural zone properties in which a principal single-family house is set back more than 500 feet. We have had to take forward at least one variance and have had a lot of inquiries in those larger properties where homes are set back at the very back of an agricultural lot, where they may want to put an accessory dwelling unit or a barn or some other type of building in the front yard where it does the placement makes sense on those properties. We are also proposing several changes to landscaping and screening requirements to enhance community aesthetics, which are based on consistent feedback that we received throughout the comprehensive planning process, and also more closely align with standards in other communities. Those standards include landscaping for common open spaces, parking lot landscaping, residential landscaping, and tree diversity. And then the last amendment proposed is related to allow the formal platting process exception for conveyance plats, which would allow boundary changes and in some cases additional tracts or parcels to be created on larger tracts of land to assist in the early stages of the real estate development process. A conveyance plat does not allow any dedications of right-of-way, easements, public land, or any other development to occur on a property until preliminary and final development plans and plats have been approved. And then a public hearing for all those items will be February 4th Planning Commission, and we'll bring that forward to Council on February 25th. In addition to those amendments, staff is working on a third and hopefully final set of amendments that will get us through the next 12 to 18 months while the UDC is going through its full update. Those amendments we anticipate bringing forward in the spring, which would include some modifications to several land use and design standards, addressing short-term rental requirements, which we are going to be discussing with the Tourism Council on Thursday, as well as urban agricultural uses and standards. More details on each of those items will be presented at future work sessions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Okay, that was a lot to unpack. Help me with two things. Thing one is I'm going to assume that this is all coming as alignment from our comprehensive plan.
Some of these things we've actually been kind of had on the back burner for the last year, so we've are continuously researching best practices and also things that come throughout the development and permit review process that continuously become issues. And so some of these things are, the comprehensive plan update has helped push some of these along, particularly on some of the landscaping items. But some of the other items related to accessory uses are things that we've actually had written for a while and are just kind of touching them up and bringing them forward.
Okay, and that makes sense. So basically you're saying you come across people asking a bunch of variances or asking things that are creating problems and we're trying to correct that.
Correct.
The second piece of that is I don't know, I know you gave us dates as to when it's coming to planning and then subsequently council. Was that to say that all of this is coming at that? I didn't quite follow when is this coming in phases or?
They will come in 3 phases. So the first one will be at the next council meeting, and that is specifically just for a minor revision for lead-free plumbing materials based on federal regulations. The second set will be related to accessory uses, landscaping, and the conveyance plat, and that will come in February.
Okay.
And then the last phase, there's quite a bit, there's a lot more in that phase, and we might have to split that out based on, those will likely be separate ordinances because especially things like short-term rentals probably should be its own standalone thing because there could be things impacting business licensing, and there's some other items in the land use section that will also go along with business licensing.
Got it.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none, reasons to enter an executive session have been canceled, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
That motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Voice vote?
Oh, I was thinking executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?